All right, I'm gonna keep running with this, and just for a little bit of context to make this video have value on its own, I'm gonna just reference the previous video I made, which is saying that I was once asked a little bit insultingly in a faith, I'm sorry, healing atmosphere when I was a young person but still an adult. After I made some contributions, a person said, "Yeah, but I used to get messed up on lithium. Why are you here?" And I was saying that if I were to fixate on the why, I would be maybe stuck with there longer or feel like that longer. But if you were to approach that mathematically, you keep the expression, the intonation, and the general meaning that as they understood it, or it would appear on the surface of what I was being asked there, and you interchange that with where are you here, and you can also improvise upon that. So where may you be here? Where would you be here? Whereby are you here? Where how are you here? Wherefore are you here? Where would you be here? And within that, you can see deeper meaning in that. I think that one thing can as easily be another thing, and it's different than something, which is like interchanging terms mathematically. So 1 and 1 could be 2, or 1 and 1 can be 1 and again 1. And by that reasoning, by the validity of that reasoning, one could dispense with, say, 1 and 1 could as soon be none. And that could maybe be true on different levels. And even the word true could be arbitrary because it sounds somewhat singular and ultimate, with what we experience as experience is anything but singular and ultimate. And it's more so ultimate and singular for that very property. But I think that, so one thing can as soon be another, but one of the greatest things and the most efficient and effective things, because we're looking for effect more so than awesomeness in life, with the outcomes we're looking for, the real outcomes. So you want to take up an instrument, or you just want an outcome dating, or with fitness, professionally, intellectually. If you want an outcome, it's going to come down to mechanics likely, because you can understand a lot and you can feel. And I'm not trying to throw out feeling, because I want to talk about that too, but a lot of things don't change until we approach it mechanically, because otherwise we get stuck in the realm of judgment and some of the actual freedom of prerogative that life has different acting and actors, it would appear, and we have different prerogatives and scope of agency and understanding that can be inspiring and collaborating, but also conflicting and interfering and sabotaging. And so within all that, it's not going to really have consequence that's favorable, if we want favorable, until we approach things mechanically, I think. But within that, questions are very powerful and useful, but one question can as soon be the other, and interchanging questions, that like the 5 W's, could be very useful. So you have who, what, when, where, why. And I think how, that's not W, but who, what, when, where, why, and how. But sometimes one can as soon mean the other, or lend itself towards understanding the other. So if you appreciate our position anywhere, within the earth, within space, within reality, within profession, within learning, within creativity, within music, our actual appreciable position can speak to any of those other ones, I think. And you could extrapolate how I'm here just by the fact that I am here. Why I'm here, just by why it might be a little bit more contentious or even profound. I haven't completely reflected on that, but what am I? How am I? Why am I? What am I can be appreciated in where I am. I think a lot of that, because I couldn't get here without all those other things. What is true of any of those others couldn't amount to anything else with me being here as I am. But then also, like, sometimes I had another question, and I want to show this. So someone on the channel said, they pop in on the channel, and they said, how did I get here? Now that can be appreciated differently, and that's actually some of the limitation of like verbalizing, like on digital platforms, like with text. Even if it were verbal, there can still be nuance and oversights in communication verbally. I've experienced that, like, as a professional, where I had sometimes nuance and challenging circumstances that would transpire with students I was serving and delivering home, such as a discrepancy between the agreement of a drop-off location between a set of parents with dual custody, that the actual the improvisation between the households of where both of which households the children are from, it was different than what I was given on paper, which the paper is the that's your actual legal charter for and designated drop-off point of these precious children. And so you're bound by liability and profession in law to abide by those designated drop-off points. But then if there's a change in that, that's acceptable, but it has to be communicated with at least with the school or dispatch, which the driver answers to. And then if they fail to do that, it can cause a hang up right there on the spot, where students are intending and they're understood to get off somewhere by themselves and their families, but that's not understood to a driver, as that's on paper. And then also when the driver communicates that to oversight, it hadn't been communicated to oversight or like a school. And in those cases, they were able to contact the parents and figure it out, but it cost me time on that route. It also cost me esteem and favor, because all the things that you communicate as a driver are very public, because they're being conveyed to your entire fleet of drivers, and also mechanics and support. And then also like oversight of like dispatch and legal oversight that would be aware of what's transpiring on a radio. And then you also just have the fact that you're on open airwaves, so any other manner of interest, helpful or supportive or detrimental, could potentially lurk on these airwaves. So you have all that going on, just to say that you sustain damage to your reputation and standing as a driver when you have to over communicate on a radio to yet clear a nuanced but also heavily liable situation like that. And then you're already a marginal person, and you can appreciate the way I'm speaking in this, the tone and the cadence and the vernacular that I'm employing on these videos is the same way I'd present myself on some of these exchanges on the radio. But I still took a lot of damage from that, socially and professionally, these type of incidents. So even verbally, there can be short sights and limitations within verbal communication, where I don't think anyone in those situations were setting out to inconvenience the students or the driver or the dispatcher or the families or the schools. That wasn't intended, but it's just the failure of communication within the nuance, but also the initiative to clearly enunciate. And then you have discrepancies in like educational background, where sometimes appearing or sounding what's called educated can be as much of a disadvantage as an advantage. And it's not always the smoothest thing, but you have a lot going on, but it can be difficult. But then it's been said that texting is only another dating expert on YouTube, but I don't recall this person's name anymore, said that texting is I think he was speaking at the 21 one of the 21 convention or conferences that's been popular at different times for men. He was saying that texting is only appropriate for logistics, and as soon as you begin to banter or socialize or fraternize or flirt on text, it can go way off the rail quickly, because there's a lack of tone and the scope and nuance and subtlety and humor and sarcasm that would be intended by a message that can go off the rail. And you can have, like I said in another video, a crucial conversation on your hands, or a crucial situation, either texting or dealing with people at all times. But so a person who comes on my comments and said, or the comments to the video, because nothing belongs to us in this life, not even the engagement of other people or our own contributions, because it's all a gift. And they said, how did I get here? So that can be appreciated as, how did this come into my feed? Or how did I come onto the earth? It can, but you can't entirely appreciate that on text, like a text, like a texted dialogue. But you can appreciate a lot of just the tone of it. You can still catch the tone. It didn't sound like inspirational or like a deep question. It sounded more like a statement than a question, even though it's a question. But I could appreciate that in different terms. As if you could say that, you could easily say, and you could answer that, what am I? So if someone comes to the comments and says, what am I? That's a valuable question. That's insightful. That can be learned from, both for a person enunciating and fathoming that, like myself, or a person that would be brave enough to answer that or consider that for themselves and do so publicly. That has yet value, and also challenge for a content creator. What am I here? So I'm gonna do the next video talking about what that person might be and what we may be, just from my perspective, being without